Welcome to Nephew and Uncle Basketball Banter. Uncle Dave, my
Yep.
partner, co-host. Yeah, Uncle Dave. So we have our Final Four set here. So let's recap the games that happened last weekend before these Final Four games get underway. So we'll start with Texas Tech and Florida. And what a finish this was. This is certainly going to be one that's memorable for quite a while, I think, with how this game ended, with Texas Tech being up nine with less than 3 minutes left, and Florida just goes on an assault. 18-wheeler downhill, and Walter Clayton hit some fantastic shots there. And if you're a Texas Tech fan, you're certainly hurting after this one.
Yeah, Coach McCarslin is definitely drank that night with the staff. And again, we talked about this last week. Even though you had a great season, you'll be remembered for how you didn't capitalize. So
Right.
you can take a great season like Clemson this year we talked about,
Yep. Yep.
like this game today that we're talking about now. So you had a great year, Elite Eight, but you're up nine with 3 minutes left, and that's all anybody's going to remember it. And that's the way it goes.
Missed the
Everybody
front end
keeps
of two
talking about.
one-on-ones.
Yeah,
Just
everybody's
tough.
going to keep talking about the free throws, but they're up 10, about three possessions in a row, and Florida gets two and three shots at the basket, three possessions in a row.
Yeah.
And again, that's the second time in a weekend, 2 weekends that Florida on offensive rebounds versus UConn free throw rebounds. And here we are again, rebounds. And it looked like, they just got tired and they stopped competing. And, then Florida fouled. Give them credit. They missed two one-on-ones, which obviously is huge, but you got to come down and you got to execute and you got to get rebounds, got to wrap up possessions and long shots equal long rebounds. And then Clayton goes off, the old Iona guard. Imagine that. Didn't even get highly recruited. And which shows you how many mistakes these recruiters make, which again,
Oh yeah.
everybody goes, well, they're a college coach. They know what they're doing. I beg to differ. I've said this before. I've seen as many shitty coaches in college as I have high school. So it's not a shock that these guys get this crap wrong all the time. So that game was given away in the end there, but Texas Tech again, Florida looked death in the face twice. Makes you wonder if they're destined to win. Guess well, the Connecticut game wasn't that much death, but this game the other day, they're down nine with three
Oh
minutes
yeah, you
left.
thought. I mean, it looks like it's over at that point. You're down nine with less than 3 minutes left. I mean, you're looking for a
Yeah.
miracle. You're looking for multiple three-point shots, maybe turnover, missed free throws from the other team. You have to get help. There's no way of coming back unless you get help.
Yeah. Well, they got two one-on-ones early in the clock, and that was a good move by coach if Golden, if that's what he really wanted to do intentionally. So that's a good move. And then the rest is history. So situation where, it worked out.
Yeah, one of my
Yeah,
biggest
one
pet
of my
peeves is teams that they'll use the whole shot clock and then they'll foul with less than 5 seconds left. It's like, well, then you just defeated the whole purpose of defending that
Yeah,
whole
that's
possession
that's
there.
no court awareness when that happens. It drives you crazy. It means the kids are unaware of the game. They don't watch enough of the game. They're not students of the game. If you're fouling late in the clock, there's no point.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, this was I mean, obviously Clayton hit some fantastic shots. So I mean, you got to give Florida some credit. It's not all just
Sure.
Texas Tech falling apart,
Sure.
but at the end of
Well,
the day, it's like the coach.
Clayton dribbles the ball out from the lane and nobody followed him.
Yeah, I know. How about that? It was like almost like a Reggie Miller play against the Knicks, right?
Sure. And as soon as he starts dribbling out, he's going to shoot it.
Right. Yeah. No. So I mean, like you said, this Florida team, being that they've won now a couple close games in a row, they know how to win close here with
Sure.
everything at stake. So they're obviously very dangerous. I not that they
Yeah.
weren't before, but we've talked about it before on this show. There's some teams they have that kind of Cinderella magic to them a little bit, and
Sure.
kind of shaping up to be maybe Florida having that in spades here. And
Sure.
I'll say this, that it's not just one guy too. It's not just Clayton. It's the whole team, I think, has that kind of vibe to it. I mean, you look at their
Yeah.
Clayton, I mean, 30 points, Uncle Dave. He had a fantastic game. He gets 14 foul shots. He makes 13 of them. 50% from the floor shooting, just had an incredible game. But everyone else just able to do their part. But Thomas Howe, though, with 20 points off the bench, I mean, that's the X factor right there. I think if you get one of these guys like him or Martin to really play great with Clayton, then they're really a
Yeah.
dangerous team.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Chinyalu and Condon, they're just able to do enough on the boards and everything. And they, like you said, it's about being an all-star in your role. So I think Florida really
Yep.
has that going for them. They have guys
Well,
that
they had the other kid hit the two threes during the run too, and it makes a big difference. That's the sophomore. If he doesn't hit those, they don't win.
I think with Clayton too, hitting these 3-point shots with guys right on him too. I mean, he's a fantastic overall player. Like I said, he reminds me a lot of Darren Williams. Now, obviously different, but that kind of player though. He just
Yeah, better shooter
fantastic.
than him, but he also sticks his leg out when he shoots that fadeaway. They got to watch that this weekend.
Right, right. Yeah, maybe
It's supposed to be an offensive foul according to the rule change.
Bruce Pearl and Auburn maybe will have the refs here on that one.
Sure.
That was a fantastic game, that Florida and Texas Tech game. Now we'll
Sure
move on,
was.
Dave, to the next game that happened that night, Alabama and Duke. And Duke just totally takes Alabama apart and out of their game. So Alabama scores half of what they basically scored against BYU. So just goes to show
Yeah,
you the
yeah.
closeouts and the length that Duke had that just obviously that bothered Alabama enough there.
Sure. We talked about positional length, and he's not a big fella. The point guard is not a big fella. Duke
Yeah,
just
Mark
used length
Spears.
on him. And
Yep.
the other thing is, I told you, I thought Shire had the toughest assignment of the weekend coaching wise, because how do you want to play this team? There's no way they're going to hit 25 again. That's the good news if you're Shire. But they didn't hit hardly any, and they just kept shooting it. So all you guys out there who like to play with analytics, as I call them, you just cost yourself a Final Four shot because, again, analytics don't let you adjust. You have to stick to the memo. And basically, they did that, and now you're not in the Final Four.
Yeah,
And Duke is just shooting the crap out of it, which is something we got to talk about later for this weekend.
yes, definitely for sure. So I mean, it just goes to show you. Sears and Holloway, I think they combined for like almost 70 points between the two of them against BYU. In this game, they combined for 11. So that
Yeah,
just goes to show you if someone told you that Mark Sears is only going to have 6 points, I would have said they had no chance, and that's basically what happened.
exactly.
Duke
Yeah, well,
defensively just is a fantastic team. I mean, they have everyone can just even guys like Mollywalk, you can switch that pick and roll. He's 7'2", so
yeah,
if you want to shoot over him, go for it.
yeah.
Cooper
Duke
Flag,
hedges
same.
well, and the third guy gets back into the lane well. That's what they do. They get the hard hedge, and then they get back to the spot with their hands up. It's that way you can't make the direct post pass. You have to reverse it, and by the time you reverse it, to throw it in their back.
Yeah, I mean, there's several times where guys are shooting a 3-point shot, but you have Cooper Flag 6'11" jumping at you. So I mean, if you're
Yeah,
gonna make 5 or 6 of them, go for it. You can
yeah, absolutely,
take a crack at it. But yeah, Duke just
totally agree.
with this Duke team, I will say this. I was talking about it. They're kind of like point guard by committee. James can play a
Yeah,
little bit of it. Proctor can. Cooper Flag can initiate offense. Can nipple. So I mean, they're just like I said. It's just a team that the cohesiveness on this unit is just incredible. I think and the
yeah,
the camaraderie and the chemistry is just great. And obviously
yeah,
they're well coached because, like you said, there's not many mental lapses with this team defensively. I mean, Alabama, I mean, they really pissed them off. And Alabama is a team where they can kind of get loose, but Duke really
yeah,
just never let them get in rhythm all game.
yeah. Duke was really impressive this weekend, no doubt about it.
Duke, I will say they got a little sloppy with the ball, I think, as far as turnovers. I think they got to be a little careful with that, I think.
Sure, sure.
Um,
But at the end of the game, they got a little sloppy.
Yeah, yep. So I think obviously the game was kind of put away at that point, but you want to see them maybe finish a little stronger there. So, but I'm sure
Yeah,
Coach Shire, I'm sure got brought up in film study
sure. I'm
at
sure
some
it did.
point. Finishing here, but the well balancedness of this team. I mean, Flag has 16, Malioak has 14, Knipple has 21, Proctor has 17, James has
Yeah,
9. So I mean, almost all the starters have double figures there. Zion
yeah,
James is 1 point away from double figures. So.
yeah, absolutely. We got Rosie on the podcast here. We can see Rosie in the
Yeah, she
background.
makes she makes an appearance every now and then, right? Yep.
My girl,
But
she
yeah,
knows her hoop.
Duke, Brown really doesn't play in this game, and Gillis doesn't either. But Duke still just finds a way. So Coach Shire really leaned on the starters in this game. You have Caleb Foster was the only guy who really did anything off the bench for them. So
Yeah,
if it came
absolutely. Well, he was a big help. He plays a little bit of point for you, and in this tournament, he's been very good. They have not been able to cover him.
so very optimistic heading into the Final Four. I think Duke just really is showing that they're an elite team. They certainly deserve to be here. There's no doubt.
Oh God, yeah,
And we'll see what happens, obviously, this Saturday. And then we'll move Uncle Dave to the Sunday games. And I didn't see this Tennessee and Houston game, Uncle Dave. There was a speaking event that Bill O'Reilly, Stephen A. Smith, and Chris Cuomo had. So me and your sister, my mother, were at that on Sunday. So that was on the exact time this Tennessee and Houston game was on. So
I
didn't
saw
get it.
this game. That's the pick I had in the knockout pool.
Yeah, you
As I said,
basically said it. You said this was going to be a mirror, Houston against Tennessee, who was going to be
yeah,
able to outdo each other. And
I
obviously,
thought that
Houston.
Houston was better at being Tennessee than Tennessee was.
Yes.
And they shot better. Tennessee missed a lot of open shots. Tennessee is had those droughts all year long, but they're a great team. I felt bad for Rick Barnes not getting to the Final Four, but you know, I'll tell you what, Houston looked really good, and
What
that's the
sticks out
difference
to
in the
me with
game. They
this
hit a
game, Uncle
couple of
Dave, is,
shots.
is Ziegler goes 1 of 9. That right there,
Yeah,
you could never survive that. There's no way they're
no,
going to be able to win this game with that production.
no, and Lanier was awful. Only gaining
Yeah,
off
he wasn't good
only
either.
gaining off
Yeah,
the bench.
yeah, he
He
wasn't
was the
good
only guy
either.
that did anything. So
Yeah.
the bad news is
Aney
that
was the only one who played well for him here, looking at the stats.
yeah, and the big guy wasn't bad either, but they got down by too many. Like I said, it's hysterical. Last year Virginia in that first tournament, everybody's calling for Tony Bennett's head, but this year we've already had three teams in the first half score less than that, and no one's calling for their head.
Well,
It's
this
kind of
is kind
ironic.
of a game, Uncle Dave, you talked about again earlier in the tournament that Tennessee really just plays himself out of it in the first half. You can't have 15 points and a half.
No,
You have
and
15
last year, like
points
I
and a
said,
half, you're done.
everybody's screaming about Virginia. I'm like, well, Clemson did the same thing. Tennessee did the same thing. No one's
No,
screaming about that. I mean,
no.
Georgia did the same thing. You can't come out and play like that. You can cost yourself the game in the first couple of minutes, and they did.
Yeah, we've seen this now. This has happened at least four times, I think now, right? In this tournament where this has happened. Obviously, in
Sure,
the first couple rounds, it happened. This being an
sure.
Elite Eight game, it's not as common. But 15
Right,
points, he's not going to get it done unless you have the other team playing just as bad as you, which obviously Houston wasn't. 34 points, probably
right.
their season average, probably. So they kept their
Yeah,
level of play accordingly normal for them. And Tennessee
sure.
obviously was horrendous. So you never can. In the second half, Tennessee plays much better. They split even thirty-five
Right.
thirty-five, but it's too late by that point. You have to doubly outplay them in the second half.
Well,
Down
when you look at those type of games, you're saying to yourself, if you're Tennessee and you're down 19 at the half, all Houston's got to do is score like 20 points in that half, and they're not losing.
right,
So
exactly.
think it back because that means you got to score 40. So like
Almost I think Uncle Dave in this kind of
you're not
tournament,
doing that.
you have to wire your team that you're in the middle of the game even before it tips off. You have to kind of I don't know how you get your team that mode mentally, but that's how you have to have it, I think. You have to have it as close to that
Yeah,
as possible. You can't waste, 15 20 minutes getting going. Tennessee obviously they make adjustments, they figure it out in the second half to play a good half, break even, but
yeah.
it's too late at that point. So
That's why I always feel like the warm up is so important to get a
it
really good
is. You have to
sweat.
get a
Some
lot. You,
teams,
you have to get you have to get a legit lather and a sweat going, legit sweating through
yeah,
your jersey and
because some teams just don't. Some teams do a bad job of that. Something I talk to my guys about all the time. And yeah, some days your first shot goes in and you just loosen up. But I always like to get something going downhill, see if we can get to the free throw line.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think these starts obviously how you finish the game is the most important because you could win a game
Sure,
obviously in the second half. You can't in the first half, but I think you've mentioned it. You could certainly lose it in the first half, though.
sure. I
You
mean,
win it, but you could lose it.
that game was over at the half already.
Yeah, so
Well done.
basically Tennessee and Houston is not a ton to talk about there, other than the fact that Tennessee just has a putrid. Again, that might be Tennessee with the team they were all year. That probably is the worst half they played all season. So they picked a bad time to do it.
Yeah, yeah. Probably the worst half they played all season.
Obviously, you got to give Houston some credit with that because they are an excellent defensive team. But at the end of the day, you got to play better than that. Your opposition, there's not any weak teams at this point in the tournament
Sure. No,
or,
nobody
or the
weak
year.
left. Everybody's feeling good about themselves at this point.
Right. So then we'll kick it over, Uncle Dave, to Michigan State and Auburn here. This was a fantastic game.
Yeah,
Really, really.
Auburn got out too soon on them. I think they got up with I think it was a 14-0 run at one point. They got up by about 17, and it's just and Michigan State made it close late, but it wasn't even as close as the 6-point spread. Auburn just Broome. They tried to cover Broome the first two possessions of the game, single coverage, and he went in and scored. And then Broome tries to act a little bit like he's Willis Reed. A couple of
Yeah.
times think he overreacted there, but he's a
Yeah.
showman like we all are.
Right.
So they just never got back in that game. Michigan State just never had an answer for any real serious run. Like I said, they got it down I think 6 at one point, but it wasn't really a threat. It's like when Alabama got it to like 10 on Duke, it just wasn't a threat. You never had a doubt, never made you nervous. It's a shame because, Michigan State, Tom Izzo, blah, blah, blah. But again, they just didn't have enough offense. And they already got guys in the portal, so I guess it didn't matter.
No, certainly didn't. But yeah, Auburn at one point is up 15 in this game. So that's
Yeah.
they obviously had a commanding lead at some point here.
Yeah,
But
that I thought was the one of the most boring game of the four.
and Kohler for I tell you what, Michigan State, I think he had 0 points in the game before this, I believe, but he had a fantastic game for Michigan State in this one. But Jemai Broom, I think he plays his best game in the tournament, obviously, in this
Yeah.
game here. So 10 of 13 with 25 points. I mean, he was absolutely sensational.
Yeah, he was.
He was
He was great.
fantastic. And Pettifer, yeah, I know we like him on this show. He's certainly a good player, but he had a decent game. All right, 10 points off the bench, 4 of 12. So didn't shoot great, but did enough for
Yeah.
them. And
He's had 70 points in 4 games off the bench. It's pretty impressive.
yeah, yeah, and but. it kind of you needed Broom to have this kind of game because again, Baker Mazzara doesn't have a great game, and Denver Jones really. I mean, what he did against Michigan was unbelievable. So he really cooled off in this game. He was only 2 of 6 with 8 points. So
Yes,
uh,
everybody's different guys stepping up, and that's
yeah,
a good sign for a winning team when that
no,
happens.
no, exactly. So I think these final four matchups here, it's going to be really interesting to see because Auburn right now, like you said, they have guys just stepping up at different points, but Florida has too. So
Yeah,
we're gonna break down, I guess, and give our predictions here for these final four matchups here. But and what
yeah,
also sticks out for me, Uncle Dave, too, is Auburn. You gotta watch out for this. 11 of 20 from the free throw line, and most times when you miss 9 free throws and you come out on top, you're breathing a sigh of relief there.
yeah. Well, the tough part is that Auburn and Florida played each other so much. You know, they're so familiar with each other.
Right.
This game could be like a street brawl. You got to see if somebody can just slow down Clayton. My fear for Florida would be that somebody slows down Clayton. My fear for Auburn would be that they got four big guys and Auburn's got one. Well, they got two. The other kid's a good role player, but
Well, that's the thing that's you got to watch out for in this game that I was going to mention, but you brought it up there. But Florida, I think, in their front court, they just have more depth there and more physical. So if Broom gets in foul trouble, I think Auburn could be in trouble.
yeah, and that's one of the things we got to watch this weekend. This is the two pet peeves I always have is one, we're playing on a stage, which is just insane. So the shooting percentages suck,
Yeah,
which will help
they've not
Houston,
been great all tournament either, by the way.
right,
So
which will help Houston and will help Auburn. That we're going to play on a stage, and Duke has shot the crap out of it. The bad news is that you're playing on a stage, and the other thing is the refs can really impact these games. I'll tell you because
again,
Houston likes to maul you, and if they allow Houston to maul Duke, that's a big advantage to Houston. And that way, if this game's played in the 50s and 60s, Houston wins. This game's played above 70, Duke's going to win.
right.
So if the refs are going to allow to grab, then we're deeper than they are. If the refs are going to allow to grab because they're men. Duke's got a bunch of young, skinny guys. I mean, Proctor's junior, but he's only sophomore age because he left high school early. We got three freshmen who play a ton of minutes. Evans plays a ton of minutes some days too. So we got a lot of skinny guys, and Houston has been known to manhandle you. So if the refs allow that, or a Cooper Flag gets a second cheap foul, all of a sudden these games are altered, or a Janai Broom gets a second foul, and that's your pet peeve this weekend. And you hope that these fucking idiot refs understand that because I've watched Final Fours where the best player on the floor gets three fouls in the first half, and all of a sudden the ref's the most important person in the game, which it should never be. But we've all seen it happen. So
I'm of the
how
mindset
these
I'd
games,
rather you call too
yeah,
few than too many because at least if you call
right.
too few, you're not fouling anyone out. You're letting the players still have a say and
Right.
dictate. So I'd
Hey,
rather
Colt,
that.
I always say this, make them obvious. If
Yes.
they're obvious, they're obvious,
Right.
but if you're gonna, but don't, know who the hell you're calling it on because, you don't need Clayton to pick up two quick ones. You don't need Flag to pick up two quick ones. You don't need Broom to pick up two quick ones,
No, you want to see
and
those guys on the floor. Yep.
you don't need Crier to pick up two quick ones. So that's the fear. You just don't need that. So this is going to be interesting how the refs call these games because that plus the stage, shooting percentages, those are always two big factors that no one talks about. The other thing from the Duke standpoint is the three losses they have on the season are all to three of the 10 oldest teams in the country.
Yeah, we
Houston
mentioned
is
this
also
way earlier
Houston
in
is
our show.
also in
Yep.
the top 10 in the country as far as age goes. So there is a recipe there for people who think this is going to be a walkover.
No
You don't
way.
know anything about basketball and you're on
Yeah.
crack because if Houston is allowed to grab, this game will be in the 60s and that gives Houston a shot. And if you get to call it tight, no, then you never know. They could have Flag on the bench with two, but that would flavor Duke, I think, if they called it tight, because I think Duke is deeper. But don't forget, Duke is still younger. Houston is all back from last year, pretty much, with the exception of the one freshman. This is new for Duke, except for Proctor, really. The rest of these guys, it's a pretty new feeling. So you really got to understand that those first couple of minutes of this game, like we talked about, you get down to 18 points, it could cost you. Duke is young enough where they could get down 18 points. You really got to be careful here. Got to be smart because
Absolutely.
this is a game where Shire might have to use one early because you cannot let your team get down 15 early. And these coaches that do that and wait for the 4-minute timeout are insane. You can't take them with you. And we saw what happened to Tennessee. They're done. They're at home right now in Knoxville because we didn't even stop the bleeding.
Yes.
So you cannot let that happen. So, and again, Florida and Auburn, I don't think they'll be as nervous just because they played each other so much. It'll feel like an SEC game to them.
Right.
Whereas in Houston has been there a little older. Houston lost last year to Duke when Shed got hurt. Everybody thinks that Duke wouldn't have won that game if Shed didn't get hurt, but we don't know that. But I just feel like these games are definitely toss-up games here because, I think Florida's a little deeper, but it seems like Auburn overachieves a little more. I think Auburn's overachieved all year long. I still don't think on paper they're that solid a team, but they play well together, and those are the teams that sometimes win.
How about this stat, Uncle Dave? We have a Final Four here where one of these coaches is going to get their first national championship. Todd Golden does not have one. Kelvin Sampson, John Shire, and Bruce Pearl. So someone's going to win it here for the first time as a
Also,
coach.
the first time we've had three Jewish coaches in the Final Four.
How about
Yep,
that?
first time. So that's exciting. Yeah, somebody's going to get a title, so I'll be happy for whoever it does. I think they're four good coaches. The funny part is that Shire's even younger than Golden. He doesn't look it. Golden looks so young, but Golden's older than Shire.
Right.
Shire's the young buck. He's 37. But Golden's 39. But the thing is, like, Bruce Pearl is like 64, I believe. He's getting towards, starting to face the end, but he's still got some energy left. And obviously, Coach Sampson's been doing this a long time at a high level. So it's gonna be a dogfight, and you're gonna have to make the adjustment. I think since it's in San Antonio, Houston will probably have a crowd advantage, although they divide up the tickets pretty evenly, I think, for the Final Four. So that's always an issue. And like I said, you're playing on a stage, so you got to see how that works because Duke has really shot well in the tournament. I think they've shot over 50% every game, which
Duke,
is
Duke,
unheard
I
of.
Duke, I think has shot the best. I don't know this for certain, but just feels like to me they've been shooting really, really well compared
Yeah,
to.
I've never seen a Duke team shoot this well. Everybody's hitting their shots, and so again, it comes down to the normal things like it's turnovers, rebounds, but it's also not getting in foul trouble. This is big. How this game's officiated is extra important in that Duke Houston game.
I think what you've talked about too. This is a time where a coach, you're worth your weight in gold when you think of certain things that you might not come to mind necessarily. Like you might want to get an extra shoot around because you have now the elevated stage and everything. Get the guys used to this. So I think it's little things like that. Now I'm sure that obviously these teams will have plenty of time to have those type of shoot arounds and things like that. But you might want to have an extra one or two because for whatever fucking reason we have this stupid rule here, or not rule, but
Got to make every dollar.
yeah, where you elevate and then you, like you said, it's not just also it just looks awful, but you then also separate the coach. The coach is on the stage and his whole staff and the rest of the bench is
Yep.
beneath him. So it makes no
Not how you
sense to keep
coach.
doing that either. Yeah, so you're making these guys now completely do something foreign to them they haven't done all year. The players and the coaches. So to me,
The
and
dumbest thing ever. It started about 15 years ago, and it's been stupid ever since.
yeah, it just I don't know whatever the
So
reason is.
let's change everything in the middle of it, the most important weekend. And we've seen some of the shooting percentage, like the Butler UConn game is the worst basketball game I've
Yeah,
ever seen in my
yeah,
life.
that to me sticks out as not just like you said the
I've
worst
seen
national.
CYO games that were more compelling than that game. It
Yeah,
was
but that
disgusting.
that's honestly like a one of the worst games to watch from start to
Yep.
finish ever.
It was one of the worst games I've ever seen.
You
So,
you, you could take away tournament championship, it was just that bad. So
yep,
you
it was
know,
horrible. And but these games this weekend are going to be great games. I still think I can make a case for each one of them winning. Houston being the most veteran group. Uh, Duke, I think, is the most talented team. Florida, I think, has the hottest player in the tournament, Clayton. But Auburn seems to overachieve as a group the most. So they all
no, you
have
could
their
see
different
any one of these
things.
teams winning. Yeah, and there's no shockers here at this
And
point.
that's where the Saturday is usually where the so-called upset happens. But none of these games would
No,
really
no,
be
no,
that big of
no,
an upset.
no.
I don't know what the point spread is. I don't really look at that stuff too much.
Yeah,
But
you have Auburn favored by Florida is favored by 3, and Duke
right,
is favored by 6. So I mean,
yeah.
yeah,
So
these are spreads where you wouldn't be shocked if
well,
it
it used to. I
was
used to
Auburn and
call it.
Houston.
Yeah, I used to call it in my head shocking Saturday because all the heavy favorites they always lose on Saturday. So like Kentucky 2015, Wisconsin takes them down. Duke beating UNLV in 1991, although I don't think that was much of a shock. UNLV had no bench. Some of us said it before this. I don't care if they were 30-0 in that piss ass conference they were in. They weren't the same UNLV team from the year before, and Duke was a year older. But nobody ever wants to acknowledge that because they don't know what they're talking about.
Plus, Christian
Uh,
Laettner says best player on the floor, Grant Hill. All of a sudden, you have him
exactly. Yeah, they don't have anybody for Grand Hill. So the thing is, people forget that those Saturdays are full of those big upsets. I will caution everybody though that there is so much pressure in these games that you do get quite a few blowouts sometimes. In the mid 80s, we had buzzer beaters 3 out of 4 years in the NCAA championship game. All right, so we had 82 with Jordan. We had 83 with Valvano running around after,
What about Keith Smart, Uncle Dave, with
Hail Mary. We
Indiana?
had Keith
Indi
Smart in 87.
Indiana
85, we
Syracuse.
had a
Yep.
nice 1 point game. 86, Purvis Ellison gets a tip in with about a minute left. I mean, so we had really close games. And then 88, it starts to spread out. 89, Ramil Robinson, it's the free throws. And then after that, 1990 is a blowout. 91, Duke's comfortable. 92, Duke's comfortable. We haven't had those nut cutting games. Chris Webber in 93 evens that out. But what happens is a lot of blowouts. They've seen some legendary blowouts. We're talking 50-point games. What Georgetown did to Kentucky in 84 was disgusting. What happened to D Wade and his guys at Marquette? They got the living crap kicked out of them, I think, by Kansas.
And
They
then
got
you've had games
destroyed.
like UCLA and Florida where Florida just
Yep.
wins very soundly, 15-point win. There was never any
Yep.
doubt. You have those kind
Yep.
of games too.
Yeah, so you can get a blowout because what happens is you get a team that looks up at the clock and you're down 10 and you start to press in your head and all of a sudden the ball's not coming out of your palm good. And that's the only thing that concerns me about Duke. They haven't had a game where they've shot poorly. And so how do they react when they shoot poorly? That's the only thing that makes me a little nervous from their standpoint. Like I
Yes.
said, against Alabama the other day, I think they shot like 50%. That was their lowest one for the tournament, I think. But the thing is, they haven't had that game where they just shot poorly. So you have to see if you can still win that kind of game.
The
That's the
high
hard part.
action, the high low action that Duke is able to generate, I think, and then with kickouts is just great. Like Molly Wog getting about 4 or 5 just lobs, Cooper Flag getting a
Yep.
few. Like I said, the chemistry is just incredible on this team. So Duke is able to blend it really well. They've not gotten three happy. They've been able to be patient and get great stuff around the rim. So
Right,
they've proven,
Rosie?
I think, that they're disciplined and obviously well coached from Coach Shire. So obviously
Absolutely. Well, he's done a great job coaching them.
he has. He's
I have
done
to
great.
say,
I would love to see,
yeah,
obviously, us being Duke fans, we'd love to see them win. But if he wins, it solidifies him and gets him out of Coach K's shadow. He's his own man then at that point.
yeah. Well, he's done some things similar to Coach K. The thing I like is that he's brought back that great man-to-man defense. Coach K's last couple of years, his
He got a
man-to-man
lot of,
wasn't
yeah,
as
he
good.
played a lot of zone. Yep.
He played a lot of zone because he had to. But Coach Shire's obviously been a little bit of a stickler in practice, obviously, for that reason. Going into the dark for a second here. So Coach Shire obviously has been a stickler. So we're happy about that because it's great man-to-man defense, and that's what we want.
I was telling my mom, I
But the
said,
funny thing is,
Duke still feels and looks like Duke, even with the NIL era and the portal
yeah,
and everything like that. It still looks and feels like Duke. So I'm thrilled
yeah.
about that because,
Well,
like I said, every Duke hater out
it's
there
the
was
rules of the
thinking
tournament. It's not Duke's fault that the landscape of the game has changed. So,
right.
they're still doing what they're supposed to do. It's still got a Duke feel because you got Shire on the bench, you got Chris Carroll on the bench, you got David Robinson's son on the bench, you got all Dukies on that bench, pretty much. So I mean that still feels good. You got Nate James. I mean, so it's still a Duke feel, which is good.
Going to close out the show, Uncle Dave, with Jay Billis. He had a comment recently in which he said he thinks that Cooper Flagg is the best Duke freshman that has ever been there. So, what do you think about that?
I would say it's tough because it's an unfair question because Grant Hill wasn't you back then a freshman wasn't allowed to be your best player. When
It's,
Grant Hill
it's
walked
a
on
great,
campus,
great point there. It's a
Christian
great
Leitner
point.
was a junior and he was already had gone to two Final Fours. Bob Hurley was the best point guard in the country, probably the best point guard ever played in college if you go by stats. So he didn't have to be the best guy. They needed him to be. And Larry Johnson couldn't cover him, which is why they won. But the other thing is, he wasn't allowed to be. Today, everybody knows Cooper Flagg. Kids come in as freshmen all the time. Like Kenny Anderson was the best player at Georgia Tech when he walked in the door. But you're not allowed to. You're just so much more free in the freshman. Like Anthony Davis was the best player at his school. I mean, Zion Williamson was the best. Like, are you allowed to do
Yes.
that?
No,
The other thing is,
it's a great point.
Christian Leitner as a freshman was unbelievable. So he missed a shot at the Meadowlands in a one-on-one versus Arizona in a regular season game where Coach K always liked to schedule one in the middle of the February. So he played at the Meadowlands. He missed a one-on-one. After that, he cooked Alonzo Mourning in the regional final. He ate him for
I
breakfast.
just
Just
watched
totally kicked
the
his
other night. I
ass.
just watched the I Hate Leitner documentary on ESPN. So
Yeah,
great.
it's so good. He just kicked Mourning's ass because he was so skilled, and then he goes and hits a shot to put them into the Final Four the next year. So when Grant Hill gets there, Leighton has already taken his team to a national championship game and has hit one buzzer beater. As we know, later on he gets another one. So he's already done these things. So sure, Leitner encouraged Hill. You always hear Leitner talk about that, but at the same time, Grant Hill is not a pig. He's kind of like Flag in that way, and that's why I've said to you, I think that Flag will be similar to Hill or T-Mac, where he'll be a 22-7-7 guy
Right.
or a 23-7-7 guy. I mean, hopefully he's healthier than T-Mac and Grant,
Yeah, he
but
doesn't have the mindset of a Kobe or an AI where
ah,
he's just
that's
looking to
not who
get
he is.
40
He
every
sees
night.
the
Right.
game. He
Right.
sees the game differently, and so all the casuals on the internet will just start screaming about it and talk about how he doesn't
But
get 27 or
I
28.
rather him be the mindset he is right now because guys will like playing with him though. So I think that'll be
Not
great.
only that, the idea is to win, and if anybody and he can help any team win. So like, Magic didn't go into a game looking to score 40 either. There's a couple of times he did, and it worked. But the thing is, like, you got to Cooper Flag's going to help you win no matter which way he plays. He's his 6'10". I think, he's definitely had a better freshman year than Grant Hill and them had, but don't forget, Grant Hill won as a freshman. So that's a little different. Grant Hill won as a freshman, and so did Christian Laettner. Got to the Final Four as a
I think
freshman.
it's a
So
great observation you make there that freshmen now you're really emboldened and empowered. Back then it wasn't like that. You
it
didn't
wasn't
just
like that. You were
get
carrying the bags.
right, exactly. You didn't get the keys to the kingdom. There was a pecking order
No,
back then. He didn't.
yeah,
If
it's
Cooper Flag
it's
had to come in the same time that Grant Hill did at that during that time, it would be different. He'd be a different player. He wouldn't be like not
yeah.
saying
And
he'd
don't
be less
forget,
talented, but it would be different.
Bob Hurley took his team to the national championship game as a freshman. So the thing is, and he destroyed Kenny Atkinson in the NCAA tournament, and he destroyed Boo Harvey. So like he destroyed big time guards in the NCAA tournament who are big time players. So the thing is, people forget that freshmen are just different now, and it's more is expected and allowed, I should say. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but yeah, statistically, is he the best? No doubt about it. But again, you got to end it with a championship. Grant Hill did. So
Yep,
I
I
don't
think
want to.
you gotta. I think it's a discussion maybe worth having, like you said, given everything that you said, and if Duke closes this thing out and wins it.
Yeah, well, the thing too is, Flag is the best player on his team. As a freshman, Grant Hill was not.
Right.
Christian Laettner was. So again, I'm on the Duke fan websites. These guys like, well, Grant Hill was a better player than Christian Laettner. Absolutely not in college. He was not. This Christian Laettner is the third best college
I
player of
think
all time.
it's the distinction. I think it's very peculiar. I think with what you described, Grant Hill probably was the most talented guy on his team, but not the
Absolutely.
best. That's probably the distinction you have
Right.
to make in that regard, right there.
Right. And
Most talented,
and yeah, but
not the
people look
best.
at the pro career. I'm talking about their pro career. I
We're
said
talking
to this
about
guy,
college, right? Yeah.
exactly.
We
I
have
mean,
guys
David
that we're
Thompson.
talking about, best players in NCAA tournament history. People are saying Steph Curry and Jimmer Fredette, and I'm like, I love Steph Curry and Jimmer Fredette, but they were there for a cup of coffee. I said, Bill Walton
Exactly.
and
No.
Christian Laettner and Kareem, you have to give
And
they
David
like
Thompson.
top three right there. Absolutely, they won.
David Thompson, Bill Russell. I
Yeah,
mean, those guys were there.
it's
Isaiah Thomas had a great run. James Worthy had a great run.
right.
I mean, forget it. Those guys were just so much better. I mean, David Thompson is such a great player, and so is Oscar. Oscar was a great player in the tournament too, and Jerry West. So the thing is, like, people can talk all they want, but these other guys, they just don't compare. I mean, these people you argue with, they just don't know anything about basketball. It's like it's frightening.
Right. Yeah, you're
You
taking
sit
Steph
there
and
and
applying his NBA career. It's not nothing to do with that. We're talking about
yeah,
NCAA tournament. We're
yeah,
talking
yeah.
we're not talking
Steph
about
Steph
pro.
stayed 1 year. I mean, I
Right.
don't want come on, stop. Allen
Yeah.
Iverson stayed 2. Get out of here.
Right. And obviously it was memorable what Steph Curry did with Davidson, but again, it's
Sure.
one time though. You have to,
Yeah.
Christian Laettner and Bill Walton and Kareem, they're doing that for 4 years.
Christian Laettner hit 2 buzzer beaters to send a team to the Final Four.
Right. Yeah.
The first shot was harder than the second one.
Yeah, the
The
one against
first shot,
UConn. Yeah.
the guy closes out, and in midair at 7 feet, he does a duck under
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
midair and hits it.
He double
That's
clutches.
just pure balls.
He
He
double
never worked on
clutches.
that shot in his life. It's just pure balls.
Yeah, he double clutches because if not, he would have gotten the shot blocked. It's incredible. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just pure balls. So,
Yeah.
you got to laugh to yourself.
Yeah, you absolutely do. But I think that distinction is definitely something that you make sure you factor
Yeah.
in when discussing these things because the
Yeah. So I have to
landscape
agree
is
with
totally
Jay on
different
that.
now.
Jay likes to say stuff that just tries to piss people off. He's become a bit of a clickbait guy, which kind of
Yes.
sucks. But
Yes.
sometimes he just says some of the dumbest crap. He's really not as I don't know. He's kind of sold out a little bit, just trying to say like politically correct crap all the time.
Yeah.
I refuse to do that crap. So like, well, he's the best one. Yeah, yeah. Maybe you want to say that, but he's not a better player than Grant Hill.
No.
Better freshman numbers than Grant Hill, but Grant Hill's if he doesn't get hurt, Jesus Christ, he's the first ballot Hall of Famer. He's going to get in there anyway because of his announcing and his college and his pro contributions, and he'll probably be the commissioner one day. I'm hoping he does. Or I'd like to see him head up the NCAA and fix this shit. But the thing is, like he's Grant Hill was don't underestimate Grant Hill. That play against Kansas in the first 5 minutes of that game changes everything.
Yes, and I think it's
Bob
one.
Hurley throws that alley oop, and the whole freaking place went nuts. And we didn't have Twitter back then, but I was in a room full of like 15 guys in my own house that I'm in now, and
Right,
everybody was just in awe.
right.
Everybody's jaw just dropped.
Yeah, yeah, that's an incredible play. Yeah, it's certainly
That
one.
game, that play changes the game, and that game is. And Roy Williams has said it before. That game is stuck between 5 and 15 the whole night. He's like, we never had a shot.
Yes, yeah, that ball. It's on the top of the box on the backboard
Yep.
there, and he
Yeah,
just
it's going to
takes it
go into the
back.
fifth row.
Yeah, I know it's sailing out of bounds. It's an incredible play. But also, folks, I think you have to remember if Grant Hill was a freshman on this Duke team, his numbers would be better than what he was when he got to Duke in
Right.
the 90s. It'd be totally different.
Right. There's no Christian Laettner back then.
No.
So, it's different. You only have one returning player here, and that's Proctor.
Yes. So, Uncle Dave, I thought, all right, we'll squeeze one more topic in here. We'll wrap it up with this here. Indiana currently, right now, has 0 players returning next season.
Yeah, Virginia was in the same boat pretty much.
So it
Well, how
just
about the two Michigan State kids who are already in the portal? The kid Holman plays a ton. He's in the portal. Like, what are you doing? Cadeau starts for Carolina. You're in the portal. Like, I don't get it. Like, and what is the movement with the coaches? So Beard is going to leave Mississippi for Texas A&M after Buzz Williams didn't get the support that he deserved at Texas A&M. Like, so what are you doing? Like, so that shows you the schools are lying because if you didn't give Buzz Williams enough support, he goes to Maryland, which didn't give Willard enough support,
yeah,
which means they were holding out money wise. And so to get Beard, there's a whole bunch of crazy crap. So if you're Elliot Cadeau, like, what are you doing? You're leaving Carolina where you start?
yeah, it makes no sense.
You're starting for Carolina. You're not
Right.
starting for fucking Bowling Green, for Christ's
No,
sake.
no, you're not upgrading. I would respect the guys more if they said, all right, maybe I'll go to a mid-major. You'll have guys maybe go down a level and maybe say, hey, I want more shots or whatever. I could
Sure.
respect that, but it's like, what are you doing? Like Scottie Pippen's son too. It's just I don't
Yeah,
get it.
like the kid Holman, like he's leaving Michigan. The kid played a ton of minutes. He played a great role on a team that's really good. I mean, like it just goes to show you the emphasis is never about winning anymore, and this is what drives you crazy. AU has become a long time ago about the show me crap. It's not about winning games. And
Yes.
now the NCAA tournament is not even about winning games anymore. If you're Cadeau, you know that Carolina is going to spend a ton of money. So why not stay there and ride it out?
Yeah. No, it's
And then here's the worst part. So he'll come back into Tar Heels, the Dean Center, and have to play a game, and he'll wonder why they don't put like up a video montage of him. Well, you fucking left, guy. I'm so
right,
tired
right,
of shit. A guy plays with a pro team for 3 years, and we feel like we're owed a video montage. No, dude, you left for the money.
right,
You don't
right.
get a video montage
We
when
don't
you
owe
leave
you
for the money.
anything.
Screw you.
I think
Take your video montage and shove it up your ass.
what Coach Cal said, I'm sure a lot of coaches will adopt this. Look, if you go in the portal, you're not coming back here. Don't think you can come back here.
No, don't come back.
You-
Don't come back.
If you want to try your luck, go ahead. You're more than welcome to it, but there's not a spot for you coming back here. So I
And that's
think
the
that
thing. Not everybody
I have
gets
to do
taken
it.
in the portal, so then you have to go down, like you just mentioned.
Yeah. I think you're going to
I
see
mean,
that. I think with 1,700 players in the portal, and that's only going to grow. You're going to have guys that are going to have a lesser situation that they're going to go and have to accept then because they left the one they're in. Like
yeah.
you said,
So like,
it's guys. It's not guys at the end of the bench on a Big East or an ACC team that are saying, "Hey, let me go to a lower conference and try to play." I could really respect that. Truthfully,
me too.
guys like Lewis who are Big East Player of the Years. Now you're leaving. What for? What? Where are you going? That's
I
going to be
know.
a situation.
You know what that is? That's Rick coaching them hard every day. The
Where's
guys
on
don't
you?
want to be pushed either.
Yep.
I'll tell
Yep.
you what, some of these guys are already in the same conference all over the place. So I'm like, oh my God, like Louisville's looks like they're going to get McNeely from Virginia. It looks like that. So I mean, like this should not be allowed in the same conference.
Where you
It's
had one guy
just
from Providence, he's leaving for St. John's, so
yeah,
you're
it's
going to
just
see it.
terrible.
No. Like we said, I think it's not we said it on I think our last show or the one before. It's not the NIL. It's the portal that's I think
Yeah,
suffocating this game right now.
the
It's not.
NIL I could live with. I'll
Yes.
live with paying the players. They raise a lot of money for the school. We know that. I'm all for that. But if you're going to make money, then we have to go to class. Let's have it both ways. If
Right.
I'm paying your ass, I don't want to hear that you can't go to fucking biology and sit there for an hour 3 times a week. Get
Right.
your ass out of bed, go to class, and make sure you get a degree out of this. So when you get out, when you don't make the NBA like you think you're gonna, you do something else and you have a piece of paper where you can maybe go get a job. Because this what we're doing to these kids is terrible because you gotta save them from themselves because they're not going to get a degree.
Right. Yeah. No, you're letting them run. I think just rampant here, and it's a vicious cycle. You can't have guys going within conference one year, and then you have to have guys either sit out a year, you have to have it where you're limited to the number of transfers that you have, or something like that. You can't have it be like this because this is just it's absolutely just totally insane.
And then we're going to sit here and blow the SEC. The SEC's got two losses. It's half the teams in the tournament. So no, that's not the best conference of all time. The other thing is, so you're going to have this thing where we blow up all these games in November with all these transfers. We're gonna value November and December games. I totally disagree.
No, I think honestly, I think those games, I think they're just warm-up games. I don't the Ken Palm thing and everything like that.
Such bullshit.
I don't value. I mean, look at a team like Kansas, look pretty good in November. They wound up fucking not even limping to the finish line.
Didn't even get out of the first round.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just I think those November games, I think obviously I'm not saying they're not meaningful, but you take them with a grain of salt. What
Hey,
teams
they're eye candy. They're great eye candy. You get
exactly.
to watch dunks and alley oops, and you watch. Nobody has really good offense. Everybody just goes 1 on
Yeah,
5.
people are
It's great.
just, they're running their basic stuff. No one's getting, as far as game plans and everything, yet you're starting to feel
Right.
everything out as a staff and everything. So those,
Right.
those, the all-state tournaments in the beginning of the season, they're great to watch, but it's more of a
Right.
showcase feel than actual feels like
It
you're
is. It's bullshit. It's for ESPN. You play a game on an aircraft carrier, whatever the hell else you're doing.
right,
It's
right.
all that other bullshit. It's all core shit.
It's not until you really get into conference play where you start really, all right,
Even then,
valuing.
it's mid January. Like yeah, it's great when I'm in the diner and it's like November and I'm in the middle of my basketball season. I can watch a non-conference game. That's great, but it doesn't mean shit.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. It's just basically a litmus test to see where your team stacks
Yep.
up and where it stands. But other than that, it's not saying it's not meaningless, but it's certainly
Sure.
not as valuable as to when you get into conference play. That's when
Sure.
you're really getting everybody's best. All right, Uncle Dave, we'll wrap it up there. All right. Good stuff. And all right, all you basketball fans out there, live long and prosper. May the force be with you. Enjoy these Saturday games. As my uncle said, you might get be on the lookout for anything. Could be a blowout, could be a nail biter, but you don't know how these
Yep.
teams are going to react when everything's on the line. And I'm sure Uncle Dave, you will agree. There's difference between tournament pressure and Final Four pressure. Everything is
Yes.
more, and you got more eyeballs on you, more media. It's just probably a different
And
feel.
you're shooting on a stage.
Right. So it's Super Bowl feel versus, wild card feel to it. It's
Yep.
totally different, I'm sure, the atmosphere. So
Absolutely.
we'll certainly be on the lookout for everything. All right. Take care, everyone.